Let's start with the left side. A or not B. It's important to remember what or means in our logic. It means at least one. When you hear or in English, often you think of either or, which doesn't mean at least one. It means at least one and only one of the two. But when this means at least one, there's something crucial that follows. Namely, if I have A, then what does that by itself entail? A or whatever in the world I like. If I am running, then at least one of the following is true. I am running or however many of those you want to go through, right? So you are always free to go from a thing, a formula, in this case A, to A or whatever you like. And what do I want? Well, I want A or not B because that's what I'm trying to get to. And so on one of the two branches, when the branches are just sitting there and we haven't gotten anything out of them, they're called open. But I can close them by achieving the conclusion that I want, which is actually only one way to close them, as we'll see. But that's one way to close them. Check. I have achieved A or not B. To reason through in pure English, as it were, well, if I have A or it is not the case that B or C, well, on the one hand, to make this whole thing true, you could just make A true. And if A is true, then at least one of A or not B is true. So that checks out. Now, the more sophisticated side. It is not the case that B or C. If you've taken any formal logic 1, you know about De Morgan's laws. Here are De Morgan's laws. It is not the case that, in this case, I'll do it with the B's and the C's to maintain parallelism here. On the one hand, it is not the case that B and C equals not B or not C. And it is not the case that B or C equals not B and not C. Those are the two versions, both are equally true, of De Morgan's laws. Named for a logician of the 19th century. I believe the 19th century. My apologies for a temporary lapse in logical history. Basically, remember, if I say the dog doesn't bite or bark, what am I saying? It does neither. It doesn't bite and it doesn't bark. And this is the example I always use, if you have like a toddler, and toddlers want to like pet the doggy, right? And so you're in a park and there's a dog and pet doggy. And then you, being a responsible guardian or parent, ask the owner of said doggy, right? Does a dog bite or bark? Well, what if that owner said, well, it doesn't bite and bark? You'd be like, wait. Okay, it doesn't do the both together, but that leaves open that it does one or the other. The barking is going to scare the crap out of the toddler, and the biting's even worse. So what would that person be saying? Doesn't bite or doesn't bark. So with De Morgan's laws, how do you, in mathematics we call this distribution, how would you distribute the negation into what's inside? Well, you slap the knot on both of the components on the inside of the parentheses, and you flip the sign. And becomes or becomes and. So those are De Morgan's laws. And they're basic in the system. So guess what? This might have looked complicated, but it's not that complicated. We applied De Morgan's, not B and not C. That just follows from the line above. And look, one of those things is not B. So conjunctions are great for you, because they mean everything inside is true, so you can just pluck off parts, like fruit from a tree. It's wonderful. You want conjunctions. They say a lot. And the more that you have said, the more you can prove on the basis of what is said. So, not B. And then we just do the same thing that we did over here in principle. If not B is true, then whatever or not B is true, since our or means at least one. So, A or not B. Success. In this case, what is my success? On all of the possibilities, and both of them, on the one hand, A, on the basis of what, if this is true, then one of two things is true, at least. A, it is not the case that B or C If A is true, we have A or not B. If the other one is true, we also have A or not B. So regardless of which, we have A or not B. So if this is true, this is also true. There is your entailment proof, plus some branching, demonstrating that truth trees are somewhat aptly named.